It was a cold November night in 2021, in a quiet, suburban neighborhood in Ontario, Canada. The trees swayed gently in the wind, and streetlights flickered dimly as a storm rolled in. In this peaceful corner of the world, the last thing anyone expected was the tragic, horrific event that would forever change the lives of the people who lived there. Ashley Wadsworth, a 19-year-old woman from the UK, had moved to Canada with the hope of building a new life with her online boyfriend, Jack, whom she had met on a dating site months earlier. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and Ashley, eager for love and adventure, decided to fly to Canada to meet him in person. She was full of hope, eager to experience what she had only dreamed of in her conversations with Jack. However, she had no idea that this decision would soon lead her into a nightmare. As the hours passed, Ashley's excitement about her new beginning slowly faded, replaced by a sense of unease. What started as a fairy tale romance took a disturbing turn when she began to feel increasingly uncomfortable in Jack's presence. Tension started to build, but Ashley, still hopeful that things would improve, didn't know how to leave. Welcome back to Crimes Exposed, a true crime channel. Before we dive deeper into this haunting tragedy of Ashley Wadsworth, I just want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. We post true crime, suspense-filled stories every week, and each case is more shocking than the last. If you're new to the channel, be sure to catch up with our previous videos to immerse yourself fully in these gripping tales. Now, let's jump right back into our story. Ashley's journey to Canada began with high hopes. She was welcomed at the airport by Jack, a 23-year-old man who appeared charming, charismatic, and full of promise. To Ashley, he seemed like the person she had always hoped to meet, someone to share her life with, someone who would love her the way she deserved. But things soon began to feel off. Jack, once sweet and caring, began showing signs of jealousy and possessiveness. He would text her incessantly, demanding to know where she was, who she was with, and what she was doing. But Ashley, trying to keep the relationship intact, dismissed her feelings as nothing more than an adjustment period. However, it was clear that Jack's behavior was escalating. Friends and family who spoke to Ashley via video calls noticed that she seemed increasingly withdrawn, nervous, and anxious. She would often cut calls short, and when she did open up, it was clear she was in distress. Yet, she still tried to convince herself that things would improve. The evening of November 23rd was when everything changed. Just hours after a video call with a friend in the UK, Ashley's life came to a tragic end. That evening, she had made plans to meet up with Jack in their shared apartment. What was supposed to be a quiet night between them ended in a brutal act that would leave the authorities and viewers alike stunned. Around 11 p.m., the neighbors heard screaming. Police were called, and the apartment was soon swarmed with officers. Inside, Ashley was found lifeless, with signs of a violent struggle. Jack had disappeared. It was a crime scene that was both tragic and perplexing. An innocent young woman, full of hope, now gone, and a boyfriend who had seemingly vanished without a trace. The investigation began immediately. The police were initially at a loss for answers, but with Ashley's tragic fate in mind, they knew this was no ordinary case. Jack, the prime suspect, had already been questioned but had claimed he had no knowledge of what had happened. He was adamant that they had argued, but that he had left for a while to cool off. Detectives interviewed Ashley's friends, family, and anyone who might have known her. Many painted a picture of a young woman who was slowly beginning to feel trapped in the relationship. One of her friends, who had video chatted with her just days before the murder, noted Ashley's hesitation and discomfort when speaking about Jack. There were also unsettling reports of Jack's previous relationships, a history that hinted at a pattern of possessive and violent tendencies. It didn't take long for the investigators to discover that Jack had a criminal past. A few years before meeting Ashley, he had been involved in a domestic violence incident. A pattern was emerging, and Ashley's tragic fate seemed like the culmination of his violent nature. With Jack missing, authorities launched a massive manhunt. The public was warned to keep an eye out for the suspect, who was last seen driving a black car. The investigation into his background revealed that he had been hiding in plain sight, using fake names and giving false information to authorities. There were also reports that he had removed his social media presence and attempted to delete any trace of his communication with Ashley. Just as the search began to slow, A breakthrough came from a witness who had seen Jack driving near a remote area. Police followed this lead and managed to locate Jack at an abandoned cabin several miles outside the city. When they arrested him, Jack was calm, almost eerily so. He insisted that Ashley's death had been an accident. But the physical evidence didn't lie. Forensic analysis revealed that Ashley had suffered blunt force trauma, and her death had not been accidental. In fact, it seemed to be the result of a violent altercation that escalated in an uncontrollable fit of rage. Jack was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The trial was a spectacle, with media attention from across the globe. In the courtroom, Jack maintained his innocence, claiming that he had never intended to hurt Ashley. But the evidence against him was overwhelming. Forensic experts testified about the nature of the injuries Ashley had sustained and how the violence she endured could not have been accidental. But despite the damning evidence, Jack's defense team argued that Ashley had been the aggressor, that she had initiated the fight, and that Jack had only acted out of self-defense. However, the prosecution painted a different picture, one of a man consumed with jealousy and rage who had killed Ashley in a fit of uncontrollable anger. As the trial dragged on, conflicting theories emerged. Was Jack truly a cold-blooded killer, or had he simply acted in a moment of rage? Was the evidence circumstantial, or did it definitively point to murder? The jury deliberated for hours, and the public watched anxiously as the decision was finally made. In the end, Jack was found guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, but some questions remained. Did he truly act out of anger, or was there something more sinister at play? Was there evidence that was overlooked, that could have painted a different picture of what really happened that night? Even after the trial's conclusion, there are still unanswered questions that haunt this case. Some believe that Jack's past relationships, which had been marked by abusive behavior, were key to understanding his motives. Could he have been planning this from the start? Or was it a crime of passion, one that spiraled out of control? Others argue that Ashley's personal struggles, her attempts to escape the relationship, may have played a role in what happened that night. Had she tried to leave, only to be met with violent opposition? The evidence suggests that this was not the first time Jack had displayed signs of aggression, but could there have been something more that we missed? The tragedy of Ashley Wadsworth's death serves as a chilling reminder of the danger that can lurk behind the facade of a seemingly perfect relationship. Jack, the man who was supposed to love and protect Ashley, became her murderer instead. While justice was served with his conviction, the case leaves lingering questions that may never be answered. Was this a premeditated act, or a crime of passion? Were there signs leading up to the murder that could have been noticed sooner? And perhaps most haunting of all, could this tragedy have been prevented? Ashley Wadsworth's tragic story teaches us a tough but important lesson. If something doesn't feel right in a relationship, it probably isn't. There were warning signs, jealousy, control, and past violence, but they were ignored. Love should never make you feel trapped or scared. Always trust your gut, and don't be afraid to ask for help if things don't seem right. Ashley's story reminds us that we need to put our safety and happiness first. If you notice red flags, don't ignore them, leave and get help. No one deserves to be in a relationship that makes them feel unsafe or unhappy. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the other one.